The studio lights burned bright as the cameras rolled, capturing what was supposed to be another routine interview. The liberal TV host, known for his bold and often controversial takes, smirked as he leaned forward. His eyes locked onto Pam Bondi's cross necklace, a simple yet elegant symbol of her faith. With a mocking grin, he scoffed. "That little trinket, that's just trash, isn't it? A relic of outdated thinking?" Silence filled the room. The audience gasped. The insult hung heavy in the air, but Pam Bondi didn't flinch. She let the moment stretch, her calm demeanor unshaken. Then, with a slight smile and a glint in her eye, she leaned in and delivered a response that no one in the studio, or watching at home, would ever forget. "This trash, as you call it, has given millions of people strength, hope, and purpose," she said, her voice unwavering. "It's carried people through hardship, guided them through darkness, and inspired acts of love and kindness that you can't even begin to comprehend. And yet, here you sit, belittling something you clearly don't understand. Tell me, what do you stand for?" The host opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. The confidence he had at the start of the interview was gone, replaced by visible discomfort. He shifted in his chair, suddenly aware that he had lost control of the conversation. Pam continued, her voice firm but never hostile. "Respect isn't about agreeing with someone. It's about understanding that faith, whether you share it or not, isn't something to be mocked. You don't have to believe in what I believe, but to sit here and call my faith trash only exposes your own intolerance, not mine." The silence that followed was deafening. Even the audience, usually eager to react, sat frozen. The host, realizing there was no way to salvage his position, nervously shuffled his papers, attempting to steer the conversation elsewhere. But it was too late. The damage was done. Within hours, the clip spread like wildfire. Social media exploded with reactions. Some praised Pam for her grace and composure, while others called out the host for his blatant disrespect. The backlash was swift, with many demanding an apology, and then, just days later, the network made a stunning announcement. The host would be taking a leave of absence. Pam Bondi had done more than defend her faith. She had exposed the hypocrisy of those who preach tolerance but refuse to practice it. She hadn't raised her voice, hadn't resorted to insults. She had simply spoken the truth. And in doing so, she had ended a career in real time. The fallout was immediate. While some of the host's loyal supporters tried to downplay the moment, the reality was undeniable. Pam Bondi had completely dismantled him with nothing but poise and truth. The network, desperate to control the damage, released a carefully worded statement. "We value open discussions and respect for all perspectives. The recent on-air exchange did not reflect the professionalism we strive for, and we will be addressing the matter internally." But it was too late. The video had already gone viral, racking up millions of views across social media. The comments section was flooded with praise for Pam. She handled that with pure class. The moment he insulted her necklace, he lost. Pam Bondi just exposed his hypocrisy in real time. You don't have to be religious to see that the host was completely out of line. Calling someone's faith trash is just disrespectful. Meanwhile, the pressure on the network kept building. Sponsors quietly distanced themselves, viewers threatened to boycott, and industry insiders speculated whether the host's leave of absence was just a polite way of saying he'd been fired. Pam Bondi, however, didn't gloat. She didn't release a victory statement, didn't take to social media to rub it in. She didn't have to. The truth had spoken for itself. Days later, the host attempted a weak apology on social media. He claimed his words were taken out of context, and that he never meant to offend anyone's personal beliefs. But no one was buying it. The damage to his credibility was already done. Pam, on the other hand, continued on as if nothing had happened. She carried herself with the same confidence, the same grace. And that cross necklace? She wore it even prouder than before. In the end, this wasn't just about a TV host's career crashing down. It was about a lesson, one that echoed far beyond the walls of that studio. You can disagree with someone, You can debate them, challenge them, but the moment you cross the line into disrespect, you expose your own weakness. And Pam Bondi? She didn't just win the debate, she proved why faith, respect, and integrity will always stand taller than arrogance and mockery. The days turned into weeks, and the ripple effect of that moment only grew stronger. The network's ratings took a noticeable dip, as viewers who once tuned in regularly began to turn their backs. People weren't just outraged at the host's comments, they were tired of the double standards. Pam Bondi, however, didn't dwell on it. She continued with her work, appearing on other platforms, discussing policy, leadership, and the importance of standing by one's values. The moment that could have rattled someone else only made her stronger. She wasn't just a guest on a show anymore. She was a symbol of unshaken belief. Meanwhile, the disgraced host faded into the background. His absence was first labeled as temporary, but as time passed, it became clear. His career in mainstream television was effectively over. No network wanted to take on the risk of hiring someone whose credibility had been shattered on live television. Social media kept the moment alive. Memes, reaction videos, and commentaries dissected every second of the exchange. Pam Bondi versus liberal host became one of the most searched clips online. Even people who had never followed her career before were drawn in by the way she handled herself. Then, in an unexpected twist, Pam was invited back on air, not to defend herself but to discuss the broader issue of faith and respect in media. This time, she sat across from a different host, one who treated her with the respect she deserved. "I never wanted this to be about me versus anyone," she said, her cross necklace gleaming under the studio lights. "This was always about something bigger, about the freedom to believe, to speak, and to be respected no matter where you stand." The segment ended with a standing ovation from the audience. It was a rare moment in modern media, where truth, grace, and integrity won without the need for theatrics or outrage. As for the former host, his name became a cautionary tale, a reminder of what happens when arrogance overshadows respect. He had underestimated Pam Bondi, thinking she was just another guest to be dismissed. Instead, she became the reason his career crumbled, and through it all, she never raised her voice. She never stooped to his level. She simply let the truth do what it does best, speak for itself. Months passed, and the viral moment continued to make waves. What started as a simple exchange had turned into something far bigger, a cultural conversation about faith, respect, and the shifting tides of media bias. Pam Bondi remained unbothered by the controversy. She carried on with her work, giving speeches, engaging with communities, and advocating for issues she cared about. If anything, the encounter had strengthened her resolve. More people than ever reached out to her, expressing gratitude for standing firm in a world where so many bowed to pressure. Meanwhile, the fallen TV host attempted a quiet comeback. He started a podcast, hoping to regain relevance, but the audience didn't follow. No matter how much he tried to rebrand himself, he couldn't escape the stain of that moment. It wasn't just about what he had said. It was about what it revealed. His inability to respect different beliefs, his arrogance, and his failure to handle defeat with grace. Media outlets continued to dissect the exchange, with some defending, the host and others praising Pam. But one thing was certain. She had won not just the debate but the hearts of many who admired her composure under fire. One evening, at a public event, a young woman approached Pam. She looked nervous but determined. "Just wanted to say, I've been afraid to wear my cross in public, afraid of being judged, mocked. But after watching you, I realized something. My faith isn't something to hide. So, thank you." Pam smiled, touched by the words. She reached up, lightly touching her own cross necklace. "Never be ashamed of what gives you strength," she said gently. "Stand tall. They can try to tear you down, but as long as you know who you are, they'll never win." The moment proved something deeper. This wasn't just about a TV takedown. It was about inspiring people to stand their ground, to embrace their beliefs, and to never let anyone make them feel small for it. And as Pam Bondi walked away that night, she knew one thing for certain: her message had just begun. As time went on, Pam Bondi's influence only grew stronger. She became a sought-after speaker at major events, invited to discuss not just that viral moment, but the broader issue of standing up for one's values in an increasingly hostile world. Her ability to stay calm under pressure, to counter arrogance with grace, had made her a symbol of unwavering conviction. Meanwhile, the disgraced TV host found himself unable to escape the consequences of his actions. Every attempt at reinvention was met with skepticism. He tried to pivot his brand, but the damage was irreversible. Sponsors wouldn't take the risk, networks distanced themselves, and his credibility had evaporated. His career had been built on tearing others down, but when he tried to belittle Pam Bondi, he had only managed to destroy himself. Pam, on the other hand, never gloated, never engaged in petty back and forths. She let her actions speak louder than words. Her cross necklace, once mocked on national television, became a symbol of resilience for many. People started sharing their own stories, proudly displaying their faith, refusing to be silenced by fear of ridicule. One day during a live Q&A session, a reporter asked her about the TV host. Would you ever accept an apology from him? Pam smiled, thoughtful as ever. Forgiveness isn't about excusing someone's actions. It's about freeing yourself from bitterness. I don't hold anything against him, but I do hope he's learned that respect isn't a one-way street. That response went viral too, proving once again why Pam Bondi had emerged from this stronger than ever. She hadn't just ended a career that night. She had sparked a movement, one that reminded people everywhere that real strength isn't about shouting the loudest. It's about standing firm, speaking truth, and never apologizing for what you believe in. And as long as she had a platform, Pam Bondi would continue to do just that. As Pam Bondi continued her work, the moment that had started as a heated TV exchange became something much larger. People across the country saw in her a reflection of their own struggles, the battle to stay true to one's beliefs in a world that often tried to silence them. Church groups, student organizations, and even everyday people reached out, sharing their experiences of being mocked or pressured to downplay their faith. Pam listened, encouraged them, and reminded them that strength wasn't about being the loudest. It was about knowing who you were and never wavering. Meanwhile, the former TV host faded further into irrelevance. His podcast struggled, his guest appearances became infrequent, and the industry that once celebrated him had quietly moved on. In the age of instant accountability, one moment of arrogance had unraveled an entire career. His name became synonymous with intolerance, a cautionary tale about what happens when you mock what you don't understand. Pam, however, never dwelled on his downfall. Instead, she focused on lifting others up. She launched initiatives to support religious freedom, spoke at universities, and engaged in discussions that many were too afraid to have. One evening, at a packed event, a young man in the audience stood up during the Q&A session. His voice trembled slightly as he spoke. Ms. Bondi, I used to hide my faith because I was scared of being judged. But after seeing you stand your ground, I realized something. If you could face that kind of pressure on live TV and not back down, then I have no excuse. So, thank you. You changed my life. The audience erupted in applause. Pam smiled, her fingers instinctively brushing the cross necklace that had started it all. You never have to be ashamed of what makes you strong, she said. People will challenge you, test you, and try to shake your confidence. But the truth always stands, and so should you. That night, as Pam walked off stage, she knew that what had started as a viral moment had turned into something far greater. This wasn't about a single debate, a single insult, or even a single career coming to an end. It was about a movement of people who refused to be silenced. And for Pam Bondi, that was a victory far greater than any TV moment could ever be. As Pam Bondi's influence grew, so did the movement she had unintentionally sparked. What had begun as a moment of quiet strength in the face of disrespect had evolved into something bigger than herself. Across the country, people who had once felt silenced by fear or ridicule found their voices again. Her social media platforms exploded with messages from people who had been inspired by her unwavering confidence. Some shared stories of being ridiculed for their beliefs at work or school, while others thanked her for showing them that faith wasn't a weakness, it was a foundation. Churches, community leaders, and even public figures reached out, inviting her to speak about courage, conviction, and the importance of standing firm in one's principles. Pam remained humble through it all, never claiming victory, never boasting about what had happened to the former TV host. If anything, she rarely mentioned him. It wasn't about one man's career ending. It was about a much larger battle against a culture that often sought to demean or dismiss people of faith. Meanwhile, the disgraced host had all but disappeared from mainstream media. His attempts to reclaim relevance were met with indifference, and any time he resurfaced, the internet reminded him of the moment that had unraveled his credibility. Sponsors avoided him, networks refused to associate with him, and his once loyal audience had moved on. Then, in an unexpected turn, he attempted a final public statement. In a short video posted online, he admitted that he had underestimated Pam Bondi that night. "I made a mistake," he confessed, his tone somber. "I disrespected someone's faith, and in doing so, I disrespected a lot of people. I never expected the backlash, but I see now why it happened. I was wrong." Some saw it as an attempt to save face, while others wondered if he had genuinely learned his lesson. But for Pam, it didn't matter. She had moved on long ago. Instead, she focused on the future, on the growing movement of people who were no longer afraid to stand up for their beliefs. She continued speaking at events, mentoring young leaders and reminding people that real power wasn't found in shouting others down. It was in the quiet, unwavering strength of knowing who you are. One day, at a leadership summit, a journalist asked her if she had any regrets about how things had played out. Pam simply smiled. "I don't regret standing up for what I believe in," she said. "Because at the end of the day, respect isn't about agreement, it's about understanding. And if this moment taught people to have a little more respect for one another, then it was worth it." The audience applauded, and in that moment it was clear Pam Bondi hadn't just won a debate. She had ignited a movement. And that movement was just getting started.